Hi, my name is Danny, and I have holes in my face. Are you dissatisfied with something in your appearance? Maybe you have too big a nose or a mole on your face? A bad haircut? Well, it pales in comparison to the holes in the face, agree? But not everything is so bad. Watch this video to the end and find out how I wrap these holes to my advantage. I have great parents. Not many people are so lucky. When my teenage rebellion started, they didn't press me. When I first dyed my hair, my mother helped me. And when I asked for a tattoo for my 60th birthday, my dad found a cool tattoo parlor for me and signed the permit. Of course, the school didn't approve of it. Any school didn't approve of it, to be exact, and I, because of my stubbornness and unwillingness to wear a uniform, changed 3 in 1 year. And even in the last, the most loyal, where I am on excellent account with the administration, the teachers look at me with apprehension. And I don't care about them. Most importantly, that I like it. Liked. When I abruptly stretched the tunnels in my ears, I wanted something new, and I thought to do something similar with the face, on the cheeks or chin. Of course, something elegant, not 20 millimeters, but something symmetrical and small. I told my parents that I would do a small piercing, and they gave me permission. I was going to pierce both cheeks at once so that the case would not be delayed for 6 months, as it was with the ears. I wanted to make a big show at the prom. I changed a couple of salons because the specialists refused to take on the operation or demanded to bring my parents, but I found a consonant. Was there an event in your life that divided everything into before and after? A terrible border of existence. For me, such an event was a damn operation. No, everything went according to plan at first. I looked like a mummy or a hamster when I woke up. My face was terribly swollen and wrapped in bandages. Doc promised that everything would be fine when the swelling subsided, and I went home with a clear heart. Parents were not very happy, but it was always easier to put them in front of the fact. It was better to beg for forgiveness than permission, believe me. However, when I took off the bandages and was going to go to school for the first time to show off the new modification, I was covered with a real icy horror. There were empty spaces around the standard tunnels Doc had inserted into the cheeks. It looked like I'd been shot in the face at point-blank range, or like I was a zombie with bad makeup. Everything was rotting, oozing blood, the rings were not holding at all, and the skin was literally hanging in rags. And I stood in front of the mirror for a good half hour because fear drove me into a stupor. I had to rush to that doctor instead of school and find out what the hell was going on. Doc was as surprised as I was and sent me straight from the salon to the clinic for tests and to the surgeon who promptly removed the dead tissue. Instead of neat tunnels through which my white teeth could be seen, I got huge holes in which my jaws gaped through. It was so creepy that I covered my face with a scarf and hood on the way home. I promised myself I would never leave the house again, because my face looked worse than in a horror movie nightmare. I pulled down the curtains in my room and stopped getting out of bed, feeling terribly weak, my knees buckling and my vision blurred as I tried to sit up. The very idea that I had disfigured my face because of a stupid whim and that this disfigurement would remain with me for the rest of my life made me sick and disgusted with myself. I couldn't sleep, eat, or talk to my parents. While I sat in my self-imposed seclusion, afraid of the sunlight and the scornful eyes of people, the results of tests came from the clinic. The conclusion was that some kind of infection was raging in my blood and that I should immediately drink a course of antibiotics. My parents continued to take care of me. My mother bought pills and made me take them. My father urgently looked for a plastic surgeon, and I just wanted to die then. The bastard in the white coat denied responsibility. Dad tried to call him and talk to him, but he hung up again and again. Apparently, he was afraid of a trial for his lack of sterility. And correctly, as practice showed, I was saved by boredom. Yes, lying down, being sick, and suffering was fun, but I was tired of it. First, I started eating, then reading. Then, for the first time in many days, I crawled out to buy new rings in the tunnels. Everyone I explained my situation to asked how soon I would get plastic surgery and fix this horror. And at one point, I couldn't stand it, and with all the adolescent aplomb, said that I would never do it. I would not hide the mistakes of youth and all that. In those days, I reminded myself of a vicious little animal. I expected to be mocked, found fault with, and judged. I was almost ready for a fight when I got to school. And I was very surprised. Have you ever been wrong about people? And have you ever been wrong about people for the better? I guess it was because I was already an informal schoolgirl. And for my civil classmates, the same shock would be a stud earring in the cheek and the hole through which you can see the gums. People stared at me, but wasn't that what I was trying to achieve by making my appearance bright? Otherwise, they treated me the same as before. Shared homework, news. Yes, sometimes it was difficult, especially physically. You know, until now, if I dreamed, food sometimes fell out of my mouth. But it was just the little things of life. The teachers were afraid of me, but the infection stopped bothering me, the deadness and rotting of the tissue stopped too, and everything was just fine. Once I agreed to be photographed with my holes by a friend just for fun. He showed my photos to a friend from a rock paraphernalia store, and I got a call offering to take pictures for an ad. Without holes in my face, I would not have received such an offer, and I was assured that this was just the beginning. The parents did not know what to think. They did not expect this from their daughter. Ha! Yes, it was cool, but I was helped to become really famous and popular by the very doctor whose greed had been much stronger than cowardice. When they started writing about me, the youngest model with the love of body modifications, not only in ordinary newspapers but also in very good magazines, this idiot decided to remind me of himself. I don't know what went through his mind when he gave several interviews directly mentioning me and that ill-fated operation. I was so offended that my name was inevitably involved in a scandal. And there was no reputation yet, and it could easily have been ruined by some scoundrel. But I couldn't stay silent. This man almost ruined my life with his carelessness. He could have disfigured other people who would have been inspired by my example, as I was once. Imagine teenagers who decided to modify their appearance and got to such a doctor. I went to court with a lawsuit against him. Medical reports, test results. There were only no photos because in the first days of fighting the disease, I did not allow them to take my pus-scarred face. This monster filed a countersuit for defamation. I added disclosure of medical secrets to my lawsuit. No one was going to give up. We met in court. Yes, I was too emotional maybe, but I wasn't just protecting myself. And not just for my disfigured face, which I still couldn't get used to. I protected all of those who, looking at my photos, secretly wanted to look like me. And very dirty doctor lost the case. That was hilarious. He didn't even get off with a fine, no, he went to prison and would be out of there not so soon. So, now I am a successful and well-off model. Not to everyone's taste, but it's all the more fun to work with photographers who can appreciate me. So my modification turned into ugliness, ugliness into dignity, and dignity into popularity. And when I became recognizable and successful, I initially shied away from my reflection in the mirror. I was tempted to cover my face with a scarf or the collar of my jacket in court. This was how people looked at me, literally devouring me with curious glances. Yes, I'm still not very comfortable to live with these tunnels. In a restaurant, I can accidentally spit tea at the neighbor on the left and soup at the neighbor on the right. But that was nothing. Photo shoots are tiring, but I love them. I love attention and new acquaintances. I'm not afraid of anything after the story. It ended well for me. What do you think? Would you agree to such modifications? And to photo shoots? If you like the story, stay on our channel. There are many more cool stories here. Click the bell icon so not to miss them. We wish you good health and reliable doctors.
Hello everyone, I'm Nicole and I'm 18 years old. Tell me, do you have any special features in your appearance? Something you're embarrassed about or your parents? Watch this video to the end and learn how to get iron hands and how to learn to live with them. I made the doctors and attendants' jaws drop at my birth. My right forearm was missing. I don't know exactly why, but in any case, I haven't had a right hand all my life. I was wildly shy about it and begged my parents to give me a prosthesis so that I was like other normal children. And what did I hear in response? Daughter, no, we don't have the money for this, so you can't. My mother tried to convince me that this is normal, that you can adapt to everything. Of course, she can adapt, because she doesn't not have a hand. I was bullied at school. And not girls, they were great. But the guys constantly teased me from a distance and called me ugly. Several times I got into fights, and even managed to kick someone in the neck. Then, my parents would lecture me and tell me that this was proof that I didn't need a prosthesis. Like, they will only tease me more, and in a fight it will break and Right, there's no money to change it. I know what was behind it. You're already weird. Your hands will attract attention. Why do you need a prosthesis if we still have to feed you with the spoon for the rest of our lives? Well, have your dreams ever come true in the most unexpected way? Once, I was hit by a car. I don't remember how it happened. I think I was crossing the road to green, and then I woke up in the hospital, and my mother was sitting next to me, crying, and my father was crying too. And instead of my hand, I had a stump wrapped in a bandage. The doctor explained everything to me. It turned out that the car did not just collide with me, it literally ran over my arm, and it was impossible to restore it. Can you imagine how absurd this is? The first thing I thought was, oh, my last hand! But, well, now you're not going to get away with it. I pleaded with my mother, made responsible arguments to my father. I said that artificial hands would improve their lives as well as mine, and that it was better at least with artificial hands than without them at all. They couldn't argue with me now. My mother asked me in a quavering voice how much it would cost. My father gasped when he saw the bill, but they were still under the influence of my sad hospital appearance and quickly processed everything. The installation took a long time. I took even longer to get used to them. But there came a time when I could write my own name by hand, and I was almost mad with joy. I was told not to load my hands so that the adaptation of the prosthesis would be more successful. But I couldn't stop running and touching everything. I have hands! Real, my own! Yay! Has it ever happened to you that your relatives did not understand your joys and sorrows? My parents, for some reason, did not share my joy. My father would praise me sourly, and my mother would turn away and almost start crying. I didn't know what was wrong with them. Were they so afraid of my hands? Would they sacrifice my hands for their own comfort? What did I need to do to make my parents love me the way I had become? Resentments accumulated for a long time, and they had to find a way out, the normal way out. For example, I went swimming at school. I had to get used to a new sport and initially swim in the paddling pool, but then I started to achieve small success. I also went to therapy sessions to develop my hands, and that's where I met Charlie. Charlie had had surgery on his leg and was also getting used to the prosthesis. I shared my experience with him. We started communicating with each other, and later we realized that we liked each other. And parents, they didn't understand me at all. Dad treated me like a little girl. He tried to feed me with a spoon, didn't trust me even to carry a cup to my room, as if I had 0 hands instead of 2 iron ones. My mother became apathetic. I thought, okay, you don't want to believe in me? I'll make you. The swimming was going well, And if I could get into the competition, then would they drop the act? I really started to train more. And yes, I already achieved great results in 2 months. I was invited to the Paralympic youth competitions. The very first of them was held on a brand new pool. I searched the crowd for the eyes of my friends and family. Charlie and his mom came, and Dad came. Only my mother wasn't there. It hit me in the gut. My vision blurred and my legs gave way, and I almost fell. I got a good track and was able to set myself up to win, but I only had one thought in my head. She doesn't want to see me? Even now? Even when I go for a medal? I didn't lose, although I was in the most depressed mood. We all went to the cafe together, but when we were alone with Charlie, he told me something that startled me and almost killed me on the spot. My mom called him and told him to stop messing with my head. He didn't want to tell me about it before the competition, so as not to spoil the mood. But since my mom just didn't show up, what would you do if you found out that your mother had forbidden the boy to see you? Would you get angry? Start yelling? Would you try to talk peacefully? I almost immediately went home and made a huge fuss. My mother also started yelling at me, and in a fit of anger, she blurted out, "You'll never be normal. Don't lie to yourself." I said, "All right," and started packing. It only took me 15 minutes to get ready, and then I just went out with my bags, and I took the ground transport to Charlie's. He was terrified when he saw me. He said I was putting too much weight on my hands and helped me carry things to their house. My mom and dad started calling me. Eventually, I picked up the phone and told them everything. I threatened to sue for my emancipation if they kept calling me, and I didn't answer the phone again. Until the end of the school year, I almost gave up on the exams, but I still passed them and even got a diploma. After the ceremony, the kids and I decided to have fun, have a few drinks, and I was so relaxed that I answered the phone without looking. It was Dad. He said just a few words to me. "Your mother has cancer." I didn't believe it at first. It was very clever to make me come back for fear that my mother would be ill. Well, it worked out. I rushed home and immediately realized this was not blackmail, but a real disease. The tumor was launched to such a stage that the doctor decided that the leg would have to be removed, and quite urgently. You should have seen my mother at that moment. She laid there all night looking at the ceiling, and then she got hysterical. Mom broke the service, crying and shouting that now she was a nobody, a pathetic, helpless invalid, and now she would never have a normal full life. I was angry. I'm not a fool, and I knew that she was talking about me too. I sharply grabbed her by the shoulders, slapped her, you know how great it turns out with Cyberhand, and growled, "Okay, calm down." My mother was shocked enough to stop talking, and I spoke. I was all talked out. I told her I'd just fucking graduated from high school, that I had a class in swimming and a cool guy who loved me, lots of friends, my first job that I got thanks to my prosthetics. I didn't have a damn problem with my prosthetics. All my problems were because of my mother. Here, I admit, it was ugly, but it sobered my mother like a second slap in the face. She looked down at her leg again. She said she didn't know how to live like this. She'd been normal all her life. I replied that the main thing was just to live. My mother didn't believe me, but my words helped her. Her leg was actually removed, and she was sobbing, holding my dad and me by the hand. But then we raised money and paid for her to have a prosthesis installed. My mother was actually starting to learn to walk again. She complained to me every night on the phone that she couldn't look at her reflection without being disgusted. I calmed her down and told her that she was very beautiful. And Dad told her too. Recently, my mother went out for the first time in shorts, and I was happy with her little victory. By the way, where did she go in her shorts? To watch my competition, of course. It's amazing how much garbage people have in their heads, and how it can ruin their lives and the lives of their loved ones. It's amazing how things change if you help a person clean up a little. My mother and I were able to overcome our prejudices. Look at your relatives too. Maybe mutual understanding is just around the corner? Did you like the video? Put a like so that YouTube will show it to your friends. And by the way, did you remember to subscribe to our channel and send us your new freaky stories?
Hi, my name is Helen. I'm 18 years old. Have you ever been self-conscious about your appearance? About braces or hidden protruding ears? Well, my situation is much sadder because I have no teeth at all. And because of this, everything in my love life was also sad. Watch this video to the end and find out if it's possible to be happy even with a problem like mine. I lost the genetic lottery and was born with a rare congenital condition, complete edentullism. My teeth just never grew. It sounds scary, but I try not to despair. When you are deprived of something from birth, it is easier to bear the loss because you have nothing to compare it with. I don't know what it's like to live without trying to prove to everyone around you that you're not a monster. How to smile without embarrassment, despite the fact that I still have teeth, even though they're false. The doctor said that implants are a contraindication for a growing body. So until I'm fully grown, I have to wear false teeth. Yes, I know, it's tough. But I'm really just a normal teenager. I recently graduated from high school and went to college. This was a great achievement for me. My family believes that I have a great future ahead of me. I hope to start my life again, in a place where no one knows about my problem, to find new friends, and finally meet my first love. Have you met your first love yet? How did this happen? Or are you still searching? I went to college with hope for a better life and interesting acquaintances. Perhaps I would finally even meet my love. However, I had prosthetic dentures with me, which were already pretty shabby and terribly uncomfortable. They needed to be changed often, especially when you're growing up, but the process is long and expensive. So while I'm waiting in line for new teeth, I have to make do with what I have. I decided not to linger in the dining room. I didn't want to draw attention to myself or answer tactless questions. So I spent my first lunch at college under the stairs, next to the janitor's room. One of them caught me at the most awkward moment when I was removing my dentures. It was so embarrassing at first, but he didn't seem to notice. By the way, his name is Sam, and he had apparently tamed the local cat. He promised to show it to me sometime. In general, it was not the worst first day, but having only one acquaintance who was a janitor was somehow not enough. So my neighbor showed me a dating app that looked for guys nearby. I decided to install it myself. New acquaintances would be very useful. I could make friends with someone and maybe more. So I used it. If only I knew how it would turn out. First, there was John, a nice guy with lovely curls. He couldn't have found a better place to go on a date than a pizza place. It wasn't his fault. He didn't know I was special. I turned down pizza and settled for a milkshake. Later, John gave me a piece of candy. I thought it was just a lollipop, but the candy was chewy and got stuck to my teeth. Heck, my mouth couldn't open, and then I couldn't respond to John's questions. I mumbled something and tried to run to the bathroom, and he thought I was having a stroke and started calling for a doctor. I couldn't let him and shouted no, and the upper teeth just came loose. So John quickly ran off. Then there was William, very handsome and a well-read guy, just a dream. We went to an amusement park. Everything was just fine until William took me on a roller coaster. And by the way, I am a coward. As it turns out though, not without reason, but we will get to that. Anyway, we were rushing in this car at a monstrous speed, and then the rails in front of us went down steeply. I screamed in fear, and my jaw flew out of my mouth in front of me. Luckily, I caught it. Of course, William noticed, and I will never forget his face. William fainted at the sight of it. Seriously, he just passed out. I had to call an ambulance and take him to the hospital. It was only there that William regained consciousness. I thought I'd killed the guy. The nominee for the Worst Date in the World award is me. Needless to say, there was no second date with any of the guys. So much for a new life. When I came to college the next day, I immediately noticed that all the students were looking at me and giggling behind my back. It was like going back to school. And then I saw John standing by the schedule. Damn it! Was he studying with me? How could I have made such a mistake? I held on like grim death. But after someone shouted, "Hey, Toothless, smile!" I just fell apart and ran under the stairs. I just burst into tears. Have you ever faced public humiliation? How did you manage? I was sobbing. I was so hurt, like it was my fault that I was born this way. I thought school was the worst thing that could have happened. But no, it was worse now. Because there was no one here who could understand me and calm me down. Someone interrupted my sobs by holding out a handkerchief. It was Sam, and a huge black cat was rubbing against his leg. Sam asked me what was wrong and if he could help me. Didn't he know what the whole college was talking about, or was he pretending not to offend me? Either way, I didn't tell him the reason for my tears. Sam introduced me to the local cat. They both managed to distract me from all this negativity. It seemed to me that if Sam had been prettier, not so floppy-eared and skinny, I might even have fallen in love with him, I guess. He was quite nice and interesting, read a lot, and always managed to make me laugh. In the evening, I received a message on the app from a guy who was very cute. He asked me out. To be honest, after all these stories, I didn't want to go anywhere, and the app only caused me negative emotions. But the guy was surprisingly persistent. My neighbor quickly picked up an outfit for me. So by some miracle, I was persuaded, come what may. The guy's name was Dylan. He was tall, slender, and very funny and interesting guy. Surprisingly, everything went well on the first date. He even said that he liked my smile. I decided to give these feelings a chance. And everything was in motion. The constant texting and calls. Dylan waited for me after classes almost every day to walk me home or go to the movies with me. We had been communicating very closely for 2 weeks now, and I decided to confess to him, tell him about my special feature. Dylan reacted calmly. He even asked me to show him. I hesitated for a long time, thinking that this would ruin everything, but in the end, he was able to convince me. Again, just like on our first date. So, I took off my dentures and showed him myself as I am. He said I had nothing to be ashamed of. I almost burst into tears from the rush of emotions. For so many years, I had struggled with the judgment, the constant ridicule. And finally, I was accepted for who I am. And then, he kissed me. I had probably never been so happy. I wanted to pinch myself to see if all this was happening for real. Everything was so wonderful. But the next day, Dylan was gone. I wrote to him, then called him. He didn't answer. I didn't know what to think. I was trying to reach him all weekend, but it was like he just disappeared. Was he busy or had something happened? I was driving myself crazy thinking about it. On Monday morning, there was a commotion at the college. Leaflets were scattered everywhere. They attracted the attention of the entire campus. They were viewed, photographed, and laughed at. I was curious about what it was. But then, I saw Dylan. And John was with him too. Were they friends? No. They noticed me, and we were able to explain to each other everything about me. It turned out that John told Dylan about our date, and Dylan was interested. Like a kiss with a toothless girl was so unusual. He was just using me. I was disgusted with them and with myself. What a scoundrel! How could I buy it? And then, I noticed a leaflet in the hands of the guys, which they were laughing at along with the whole college. I was on them, smiling with my toothless mouth. What a nightmare! I felt my body go numb, and tears started to flow from my eyes. Everything else was a blur. I woke up under the stairs, with Sam holding me tightly around the shoulders. He tried to calm me down, and said they were all stupid, self-centered fools. He was looking at me in a way that no one had ever looked at me before. It turned out that Sam had liked me for a long time. He found me on social network, liked my photos, and wrote me something. But I was so interested in others that I didn't even pay attention to his signs. The worst day of my life became the happiest because I finally found someone who didn't care about my appearance. I found someone who cared about me. Perhaps this meeting was worth all the ridicule I had endured. And you can subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any new stories.